Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprints so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you, John Kim, author of Single on Purpose. I used to be a miserable fuck, and it's not me, it's you. Also known as the Angry Therapist on social media. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to just accept the invitation to be here today. It's really freaking cool, man. You know, it's funny because a year ago I was listening to you on Ed Milet, and I had followed you way before then, but you had this moment that was like kind of surreal for you when you first got into his presence, because the night before, you know, you're able to review his content and look through it and check him out, and you were like, that wall comes down, and then all of a sudden it's like you're in front of this person. You have this, you can feel his energy, his power, his presence, and just who he is as a person. And it's like, you can just sense that it was like washing over you in that moment. Like, how cool is the internet to be able to bring so many different people together? So yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. And I always tell people, if you ever hear me talking shit about the internet, because of course there are bad things too,
Yes.
punch me in the face, because the internet has given me, it's given me sense of purpose. It's given me life. It's given me a career. It's given me it's given me so much.
Right.
The wall being down now and being able to access people, whether it's via referral or DM or even, through agents or whatever. It's amazing. I mean, it's really, like the idea of a celebrity is dead, in that it could be your next door neighbor, celebrity.
I often wonder, I'm waiting for my neighbors to catch on to what I'm doing, because they see me with the microphone and the phone and walking around. I ruck every day and I'm constantly recording. I'm sure they're like, this guy is crazy. There's something wrong with him.
This guy listens to Joe Rogan, or he's doing porn.
Maybe. I saw that you got a new cold plunge.
Yes.
How do you like that?
Man, I've become obsessed with it. It has all the ingredients of something that is challenging mentally, which I'm drawn to. It's a challenge physically, and then also, they keep finding more and more health benefits to it. So I just and I know it's kind of popular right now. Zero, nothing. To be honest,
I think a lot of procrastination, hesitation, and
what if we find out at years later that the whole thing is a myth, and
gotcha.
People are spending thousands on these cold plunges and torturing themselves, and for no reason. No, the first thing is inflammation. I try to get into the gym daily, so that's my number one thing, is lowering inflammation. I'm hoping that metabolism speeds up. At 50, it supposedly helps with testosterone, which is huge naturally. And then this, I feel for sure, this I know exists, just because I feel it so much, is the about 5 to 10 minutes after, when you get out, you really feel like you did cocaine naturally. I mean, it's really hard for me to be upset, angry, depressed right after a cold plunge, because I'm on such a high. So the dopamine is real.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you do it, or have you done it?
I have done it. Mine currently has a hole in it, and I'm in that place of, man, because I got one of the troughs, right, from Tractor Supply, and then it froze over the winter, and then it's been 90 degrees here, so it's whatever. But the temperature is getting to the point now where it's like I'll be able to do it regularly.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at pulling the trigger on the one
fancy.
Yeah, but it's like, shit, $5,000 ends up being $6,000. I live in Illinois, so if I put it outside, there's a high potential, if I don't get the hot and cold, that it'll crack, or there'll be some sort of issue with it. So
right. They're astronomical. I got kind of sponsored. They gave it to me for free, and it was $8,500, and it took 3 months. They're custom made from Australia, and I was like, who can afford? I mean,
right.
That's such a huge investment. But I gotta say, shout out to them. I've been using it daily. I have friends coming over. My place is now called the John Kim's Korean Spa, and it's great, man. I'm taking drop-ins. It's great.
And what's the brand name? I'm not affiliated, but
Odin.
obviously you are. So
Yeah, Odin,
Odin.
Odin. They're like the Bentley of ice plunges. I just saw on Instagram Chris Hemmingsworth,
Hmm.
the big hunky action star. He has one now, and it's
Nice.
really kind of catching on.
It seems appropriate. Odin, Thor.
Yeah,
I can,
that's exactly, yeah.
yeah, I can
It
see
looks
that.
very, yeah. It's
I'd be begging him if I was Odin to
right,
please
right.
use our cold plunge and talk about it often.
Hey, I love, by the way, it's very like me that you just hit record and we jump right in. Because I
Yeah.
was thinking to myself, wait, we're still doing small talk, or are we in it? And I
No,
realized,
we're
oh
in
shit,
it.
yeah, we're in
Yeah.
it. So thank you for displaying. I see my books up on your shelf.
100%.
That's very
Yeah.
sweet.
So this is something that I've taken to doing to try to help people out. I'm in this place of what I've realized for me on social media is collaboration is key. And
Yeah.
so all of 2020, this didn't exist a year ago. Really, it's been the past 6 months that I've been able to gain momentum. And in the process, I keep asking people and they keep saying yes.
Mm,
Occasionally people say no, and that's fine. I get
yeah.
it. In my mind, I'm just like, well, 6 months from now, we'll be having a conversation. It'll happen. That's why I was talking about Ed Milet to begin with, because this is one of those full circle moments for me where it's like, how cool is it that 6 months ago, this really wasn't a thing. And now all of a sudden, like that momentum got built. I met MC. We've
Mm-hmm.
built a small friendship
Mm.
and I enjoy our conversations, which brings me up to tiny little joys. What's a tiny little joy that you've experienced recently?
Um, I mean, speaking of plunges, that's become definitely a tiny little joy in my life. My daughter, she's almost 4, wakes me up in the morning. She's the human alarm clock, so she comes banging through my door, and will jump on me or do something, and in that moment, and of course, no one likes to get woken up, but something about her jumping on me first thing in the morning is definitely a tiny little joy. Makes me happy.
And it's one of those things I keep telling people, you have to try to find these things in the smallest possible moments in your life. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you mentioned you can hear the door open and
Hmm.
then you can feel the presence of the little one in the room. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden they're hopping on the bed and you're like, all right, I'm up, I'm here, and it's just
Yeah.
like that moment. If you can hang on to that moment, it's ever so brief. They don't last very long. It's hard to have that moment last any longer than a few seconds, maybe a
Yes.
couple minutes if you're lucky, to appreciate that in the moment, to slow things down and to allow
Hmm.
yourself to experience that as a gift.
What's one for you most recently?
Oh man, because this is my life. It's just the people that I'm able to connect with. I had a
Mm,
wonderful podcast episode yesterday with Rick William, and
mhm.
he's just a really good dude, kind, compassionate, and these conversations they fill me up.
Yeah.
I don't know if MC shared a portion of my story with you, but I was a police officer for 8 years,
Mm, mhm.
crime scene SWAT team, and had all these different experiences through that. And
Wow.
the reason I'm here is the amount of death that I saw on a regular basis, whether it was inflicted by someone else or self-inflicted.
Wow.
And you begin down this path of personal development, or at least I did, because I needed more information. I didn't understand what was happening. I'm looking at this stuff going, why does this keep happening? Is it something that's preventable? Is there something that my role as a police officer, is there something that I can do through this process to begin to try to understand and then try to mitigate or prevent? So you go down this path of finding all these different books, and it led me to attachment.
Mm,
And I started diving into attachment because a lot of this stuff is going to be relationship related, how we relate to other people, how
mhm.
people receive us, and more importantly, just the view that we have of our world and our environment, and
Yeah.
then how that feels to our nervous system. It sounds like all these little pieces, but it's like when you bring them all together, it's like, well, now there's this little package that we can start to develop and work on and bring attention to begin to help people. And it's like you say, it's that relationship with yourself.
What,
How do I improve that?
how did seeing so much death in your life, affect you? I mean, what was there, I mean, to me, that sounds traumatic, but,
Yeah.
did it also lower your quality grade of life? Was there a sense of hopelessness? Did work become scary and dreadful?
Brother, I don't talk about this very often.
Oh, perfect. Perfect question then.
Yeah. Well, so I've
You don't
struggled.
have to, by the way, it's your
No, no,
podcast.
no, no, absolutely. But it's one of those things. It's just I don't think enough people. You're the type of person that I would have this conversation with.
Mm.
A lot of people try to enter into this conversation, but they don't have the background, the experience, the
Yeah,
knowledge. They
yeah,
don't know what it's like to walk into a room where
yeah.
somebody has left the planet permanently, and then the lack of energy in that room and what it feels like and the
Mm-hmm.
experience and the setup and the amount of time and effort that was put into trying to figure out a particular method or route that they were going to take to facilitate this.
Yeah.
And when you package that all together and then you see it in its final stages, then my job is to come in and you document, you go through and you take pictures
Mm,
and you dissociate in the moment,
yeah.
because if you allow it to wash over you, you're going to have this like visceral emotional reaction. If you don't,
Yeah.
like, you're just not a human being. Like, I don't, or you've completely dissociated to the degree where you no longer feel those types of feelings, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a high level of just empathy and compassion and heartache, especially when relatives would arrive. It's a mother, a brother, a father, a
Oh, yeah.
sister, an
Yeah.
uncle, and people drop to their knees and they're crying, and you can just hear the wail, and that sticks with you.
Oh God.
And
Yeah. I
and
can
it
imagine.
makes you want to do something about it, to figure
Mm-hmm.
something out. And hopefully at some point down the road, what I'm creating here is going to lead me down a path to be able to
Mm.
bring people together where we can have this conversation and really start to change it.
What was the catalyst for you to quit that career and then start this one, or was it organic?
It was very organic. I got injured
Mm.
and had bicep surgery along with a neck injury, and decided that it was time to make a pivot. This was something that was already kind of boiling in the background. I was thinking about it, trying to figure out how to make it work. What can I do? And it was kind of divine intervention. You get put in this place of, should I stay or should I grow?
Mm.
And I chose to grow. That meant leaving something that I worked so hard for,
Mhm.
because I was a chef for 15 years before that.
Oh wow,
And
amazing.
2008 economy tanks. I decided I'm going to go back to school. So I started at a junior college, take a job for far less money than I was making because I
Yeah.
was unemployed at that point. And you do
Wait,
what you have.
how old were you when you did that?
When I went back to school, I was 32, 33.
Oh, wow, because I went back to school to be a therapist when I was 35, so we're kind of in a similar age range where we
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of, yeah, go back and try to reinvent ourselves, yeah.
Well, that's back to your book, right? I used to be a
Yeah,
miserable fuck.
yeah,
It's like we dive into that story, and it's just like that story is so relatable to so many people. And
mm,
I hope that you know that. I hope that you realize just the impact that you're having, because you were willing to put your words down on paper, and you do it in such a way that it's eloquent because it's brief. It's
yeah,
so easy to understand and comprehend, and to let it wash over you and then accept it as a personal truth. Like, yeah, I get that. I resonate with that. I can
mhm.
do something with this. This is tangible.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I used to think, because I don't have a vocabulary, I don't have any big words that, I was dumb and a C student, but I think,
same.
what I do is I bring things to street level, and so what
Yeah.
happens is I think it throws a wide net, which I've realized can be a good thing, not a bad thing, so I appreciate that, thank you. So you went from chef, police officer, and then, SWAT, all that
And
stuff.
in the middle of that, I ended up getting a master's degree in
Oh, wow.
threat and response management from the University of Chicago. So,
Man, busy. So going to school and doing that,
correct.
and then, hurt your injury, and then getting into, is it podcasting your first, or is it social media, or is it everything?
You
Just
know, I started on TikTok.
oh, okay, nice.
Oddly enough, I was a year late to the game. Everybody else started in 2020, and I started in late 2021. And it was a lot of me in my recliner for 3 months because of my
Mm,
bicep surgery. So I was in
mhm,
this ice pack for several months and just talking about mostly relationship related. And like I said, I had already fallen into attachment. And I think that's really the root, if we can get into that. And what is self love to you? Because I have a self love challenge and I have my own definition, but I
yeah.
like I like the little twist that you put on that. So what's your definition on that?
Yeah, I've never been a fan of the term self-love because I felt that it was kind of a bumper sticker, and I think that love is a choice. I also think that, we love people that we don't like, family members and stuff, and so, after my divorce, instead of self-love, I asked myself, "What would it look like to like myself?" Because I think like has to be earned. Because I could say all day, I love myself, and it could be a mantra, an affirmation, but it's very slippery. And so I said, okay, if I was to like myself, who do I need to become? What are the actions? And so I was like, okay, I need to earn that. and starting at just kind of ground zero, no friends, no money, nothing, with just a blog. I spent every day doing things to earn my like, and so that was my journey. And so getting to a place where um, I like myself generally. Some days I don't. To me, that's more powerful than this idea of loving myself, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. I think it's
Yeah.
important for people to recognize, right, that yeah, some days it is going to be hard to like yourself. Like
Yeah.
we get to this place where we think that like healing has to happen, and once I'm healed, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, no,
No, it's not an island.
yeah, you're always in a state of becoming, and
Yeah.
there's a flow to that, and
Yes.
there are going to be those ups and downs.
Yes.
How did being a screenwriter prepare you for where you're at right now with everything that you do?
I was asking, and I always ask an opening question when I run groups and stuff. And yesterday in office hours, the question I asked was, "What was the best thing that never happened to you?" Right? What was the thing that if had happened, you wouldn't be where you're at? Jason's writing this question now because he's going to steal that shit. Jason, you go
Hell
ahead.
yeah!
And so the question, and so my answer to that is um, never making it as a screenwriter. If I had made it as a screenwriter in my late 20s, 30s, if I had sold, a few $1 million scripts or whatever and entered that quad in Hollywood, Tinseltown, I think I would be the douchebag in the Ferrari. I think I would be, this is dating myself, an true Hollywood story. I think I would
Yeah,
be
right.
predictable. I know that because I'm impulsive. I'm kind of addictive. I have addiction to my family. But because I quote unquote failed, it forced me to uh, go back to school, get my master's, study psychology, and then start living a life where I could, instead of exchanging truth for membership, I would live a life that was more inward, more honest. And now listen, I'm a gearhead. It doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with Ferraris. I would love to buy a few
I
vintage
was just gonna
Porsches and
ask, did you ever
motorcycles.
get
Yeah.
one? I know you got a bike, but
No, I never got a Ferrari. I'm more of a, how there was like Ferrari people and Porsche people.
uh-huh.
I'm more of a 911 guy, but um, I definitely would be still chasing shiny things, if you will, and living a life that's more outside in instead of inside out. So yeah, that 10, 15 years of starting with nothing, changing careers, that was prescribed for me. And then what I take away, because I really believe that all parts of our story will be used. It's a choice, but that helps me tremendously, because if not, I'm busy trying to rip out chapters. I don't really believe I failed as a screenwriter. I think that the 10 years of writing screenplays and I would do it diligently because I didn't have a life, and I was desperate. So it actually laid the tracks for me as an author, because I'm known to write very fast. And so um, when I was a screenwriter sitting at Starbucks writing for 10 hours a day, that like it's like the whole Bruce Lee, either the Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours or Bruce Lee's 1,000 kicks.
Right.
Just the reps of writing and writing and writing was my at my school and my training. And so when I started getting book deals, it just, or actually before then, when I started blogging, and I've written maybe 5,000 blog posts, it just came naturally because I was just so used to that as a way of life. And so that's what I think that chapter of my life was meant to be.
You're working on a new book now, aren't you?
Hmm.
What's that
Yep.
going to be about?
This one's all about surviving your breakup. This is all about
Yes.
yeah, it's about, I wrote this book called Single on Purpose, and I realized through that and all the comments and stuff, so many people, even before being single on purpose, they were going through an expired relationship. So I was like, oh, I gotta write a book about breakups. And then my publisher was, yeah, that's a no brainer. Let's do it. So I just finished it.
That's awesome. When's that due out?
It takes it depends, but writing a book and going through a publisher and then it coming out on shelves takes roughly like a year. It's very similar to kind of like the movie process. You turn it in, it goes through editing. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Teams coming up with the cover, which is my favorite part, right? Seeing the
Right.
poster and marketing and all that. It's exciting, but the whole thing takes about a year. So it should be out next year sometime.
That's going to be huge. Like I said, you can dive into anybody's comment section that talks on this stuff and get all the inspiration that you need for something like that. People they're hurting and they're struggling, and they're in this place where they get into these relationships, but then they think it's the only relationship. And so that's
Yeah,
something that you talk
yeah.
about a lot is the one. How has that shaped us in our relationships and how we interact with other people? That idea of the one.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous. I think the idea that there's only one person for you to be with in this world makes you narrow. It also puts a lot of pressure on that one person or the relationship. And also, what it does is if things aren't going well, instead of really working on your relationship, it kind of gives you an escape door because then you say, "Oh, you're not the one. My one is out there because we're not getting along." Instead of getting rolling up your sleeves and working on the relationship. Relationships are built, and I think that love really doesn't happen until things get hard.
But how do we know when to stay or when to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a process. I think that's a it's different for every individual. I can't give you like a one fits all answer to that. There's so many
Sure.
different factors. But the general rule I say is if you've done everything you can, and you got to be honest with yourself, including therapy and really owning your piece and your patterns and all that. And you realize that now you're starting to break up with you. So now the relationship, that container slash partner, maybe the alignment is off, maybe you guys are outgrowing, whatever is happening. Now you are starting to compromise self. And so I think when that happens, maybe the relationship has expired and it was only meant to go as far as it was meant to go.
What would you say to somebody who's waiting for a particular relationship to come back?
Oh, I think the life is too short to, well, when people try to do round twos, round threes, or give something a second shot, most of that doesn't work out because I think two people has to experience secondary change. Secondary change is change that's not reversible, right? That you are now a different person. um, your cells are different. The way that you see the world is different. The way you maneuver in relationships are different. So if two people are different and they've gone through some kind of journey, then there is a chance because even though you may look the same, the relationship dynamic will be different. But if people just got haircuts or abs, or it's been a while and you just missed the sex or whatever it is, the same things that broke up the relationship are still there because they weren't addressed, and they're probably going to still be there. This isn't for everyone, not 100%.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people gave it a second shot, and for some reason it worked out. I don't know. um but
I would consider those outliers,
yeah,
probably.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe what those relationships needed was time and space. And then when people came back, um, they were wiser. They noticed more. They were now ready to do some work. Who knows? So
Yeah, and some
yeah,
circumstances where that might happen is, somebody had a death in the family or they're going through some sort of personal
yeah,
struggle that maybe they
sure.
haven't articulated or communicated, and they can't give to the relationship at that time. Now, ideally, if we're all healed people running around, then yes, you're able to work through that, but not all of us can do that when we're in a place of struggle. We haven't developed that resilience yet. So the
Hmm.
path is I got to step back, I got to let go, and then 6 months, a year down the road, things have changed, and now you can kind of dive back into that and see if it's something that you want to get into.
Yeah.
I also say ask for therapy receipts, but there's always that. What does it mean to be a man?
Oh man, I have no idea. So I think that definition is a moving target.
Yeah,
I mean, like even meeting you and hearing your story. Um, I mean, you have such a diverse story from chef to police to
I call it chronic resilience.
yeah,
It's just
and I think you have it seems like you have um a good combination of both masculine and feminine energy. Of course, you physically very masculine, but also someone who is reflective and on this journey. Um, I think I mean, I always try to simplify. Sometimes it's I'm simplifying too much, but uh, I started by saying my definition of man, and this ties to my story, is someone who responds instead of reacts. Because most of my life I was a walking reaction. My dad didn't have the ability to respond; he was always reactive. So although I loved him, I didn't see him as a man. I kind of saw him as a man child. He was also an alcoholic, so being an adult child of an alcoholic, I saw a lot of that in me, a lot of reacting. And it wasn't until my divorce and realizing that I am a walking reaction, and starting to learn how to respond, that's when I started crossing the great divide from boy to man, I think, you know? And so, to me, that's kind of number one, is if you have the ability to respond instead of react. Um, I mean, I don't think that's the only thing, but that's the beginning of, I think, going from boy to man.
Right. Well, in your book, I used to be a miserable fuck. We're in this place where we're emotionally immature, we're underdeveloped,
Yeah.
and being able to cultivate enough self-awareness to recognize some of those patterns in yourself, that's gold. If you can do that, if you can just get to a place where you can start to see, and it might just happen, it's what happened to me. I'm driving down the roadway, I got my truck windows down, and it's a nice day out, the sun's out, it's just perfect, the radio's off, and I'm in this state of silence, and then all of a sudden it hits me. I'm the common denominator in all my life's problems. I should probably do something about this.
Mhm.
And it wasn't something that I had really contemplated before, but it just hit me that something's got to change. There's a shift that has to happen. It was this
Yeah.
inner knowing that came from deep down here. And I'm like, it's time. I got to change this. And so if you can cultivate that self awareness, it's just a huge step in your personal development and self discovery journey.
Yeah, and the emotional, unawareness, the reactiveness, the iron fist, the suppressing feelings, the addictions, those are all kind of, the result or the ripple of something that's happening inside, which is maybe a disconnection with self, old wounds, like other things that are deeper. So it's not just about fixing behaviors, because that can be more of a band-aid,
Mhm.
but really exploring your relationship with self. Lately I've been doing a lot of learning how to self-soothe, reparent, rewire. Like, these kind of words to me live under the surface, and they're going to shape you and grow you, and addressing old wounds, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's the real work, not just, okay, I got to take a beat before, or I'm gonna chase this guy who cut me off, and
Yeah. Let's
um,
not do that.
yeah, I mean, that's
But
helpful too. That's more like, I think that's on the surface, that's just as important. But on top of that, I think, we do need to go deeper, follow the string down. Where do these things come from and why? How have you been hurt? What trauma have you been through? Like that kind of stuff.
I love that you use that as an example because the interview I had yesterday said the same thing, chasing a guy down. It was like,
Oh, really?
yeah, it was a
Did he
road.
also live in Los Angeles? Maybe that's why.
No, Costa Rica, I think. But
Yeah.
you catch yourself and you realize, yeah, this isn't good. I should
Yeah.
probably not be doing this. And where does this even come from? Why am I doing this? I don't get it. What does self-soothing look like for you now that you started to dive into that?
Coconut oil on a Friday night. No, I'm just kidding. Self-soothing. That was the boy in me
That
coming
was
out
a
a little bit.
13-year-old that's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah. And you know what? I let that 13-year-old say what he wants to say once in a while. Very,
hell yeah.
I did a video of, me tanning my taint, which is also
I
the
was
boy in
gonna
me.
mention that.
Yeah, and I also lost like 2,000 followers, and,
Yeah.
anyway, uh, self-soothing to me is, I think in relationships is when it's the hardest. So I tend to swing toward an anxious, attachment style. So self-soothing to me is, not putting my needs on my partner, but, sometimes taking care of myself, my anxiety, not depending on my partner to calm my nervous system or reduce my anxiety, or, love me in a very specific way. Um, Instead, self-soothe. So, for example, if I, um, you know, feel like I need compliments, or I feel like I need, to be desired, that's a legit need, but sometimes if I'm needing that every single day and I'm grabbing my partner for that, um, maybe there's some self-soothing. Maybe it's coming from a place where it's my responsibility to look at what's lacking instead of demanding or wanting from my partner, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does, and it's that runner chaser dynamic that often gets created with the anxious and avoidant, and it
Hmm.
pops up so much in the comments that I receive. I went on a vacation with my partner. There was this, it was great for like the first 3 days. By the fourth day, things kind of blew up, or like things got really silent. And then by the time we got home, they bolted. I didn't see them for 2 weeks after that. What's happening when that situation happens? And how can I begin to navigate that, especially without taking it personally?
Yeah, yeah, and it's a journey. It's a practice, but self-soothing and kind of reparenting, I think, is those kind of go hand in hand. Reparenting yourself, being there for yourself emotionally, and of course, if you're in a relationship, it's your partner should also support and champion, but not at the risk of them losing their sense of self.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard.
What does reparenting look like for you?
I think for me, I grew up in a Korean family where small family, just two sons and two and parents. They were always at work, and so my parents never taught me um, anything. I mean, they just wanted me to study and get A's because that would lead to success. Uh, they didn't teach me how to make my bed. They didn't teach me how to do dishes. My mom did everything for me. So when I was when I was 35, I got divorced and found a roommate on Craigslist. I remember doing the dishes and I poured dishwashing soap. I didn't know that the dishwashing machine had its own different type of soap. So
Uh-huh.
I poured dishwashing soap. He came home and there were suds everywhere, flooded.
Yeah.
He luckily thought it was kind of funny and cute, but um, that's kind of a simple example of just me kind of being an adult child and then relearning all just the basics, man, reparenting myself in what it means to be an adult. So
Yeah.
that's kind of behavior, but also emotionally. I didn't get a lot of emotional milk. No one said to me, "You're a good kid," or it was
Right.
always, go, you got a B, go get an A. I was driving home yesterday and I got emotional because I was thinking about my own daughter, and I had this thought. I said, "I can't wait." I don't know where this came out of, but I thought of her, when she's older, maybe teens, maybe 20s, and I couldn't wait to tell her one day that I really love who you've become.
Yeah.
I really love who you've become. And then I thought, "Oh my God, what if my parents said that to me?" Even today as a 50-year-old man, like, I don't even think my mom doesn't even know what I do, but, like, what if they said that to me? And I sat with that, and I was like, "God, that would feel amazing." Not I don't like, not I like, how many books you've sold or what you've done or the scoreboard or whatever. I
Right.
like your motorcycle, your house, but, like, I really love who you've become. And I just sat there like, "Oh god, every person needs to hear that." And so, um, my point in saying this is giving yourself that. Giving yourself that you really like who you've become. To me, that's reparenting because most of our parents have not said that to us.
Getting that one phrase, "I'm proud of you,"
Yeah, of
right?
course, that
I
too, yeah.
I
Yeah.
respect you. I
Yeah.
respect the person you've become.
Oh,
My
yeah,
dad
big
and I
time.
had this amazing opportunity when I got injured. I didn't have anybody to help me. My German Shepherd's not gonna, make my food for me and stuff like that. Because after surgery, I was unable to do a whole bunch of stuff one-handed, and we had
Mhm.
this opportunity to connect in ways that we hadn't before. Because oftentimes your parents have this version of you in their head.
Mhm.
You left the house, and that's the version that kind of sticks with them. And then
Mhm.
there's all these little moments throughout time that get intermingled with that, but the core belief is that you're still kind of this 19-year-old that left
Mhm.
the house, and we've had all these small experiences, and we had all these amazing conversations, and he let it out. He's like, I am so proud of the man you've become. and just your thought process and how you see the world. And it was just like, shoo, you know, like
Wow. Wait, what got him to the point to say that? I want because
a
for him
lot
to
of it
say
was a lot of tough conversations. You look at
yeah,
all the
yeah.
books behind me, and that's my thought process. And I'm very much entrenched in learning and growing and expanding and reparenting and trying to become this version of me. There's that gap of who I am now and who I want to become. And there's a bunch of skills that I haven't learned yet in order to become this person. But prior to that, I didn't learn the skills that I needed to be an adult, at least not to the degree that would have made me more successful at an earlier age, right? I've always had to do things the hard way. And I'm thankful because it led me here and I get to do this kind of stuff. But at the same time, it would have been great to learn this stuff a lot earlier instead of having to do it all the hard way. But that's my fault. I'm a hard head when it comes to a lot of stuff. So,
I also believe that we take in what we take in, we learn what we learn when we're meant to. I don't know if it was be earlier, if it's possible to be earlier because we were different and we weren't able
right,
to absorb. I wasn't meant to have a child any earlier, man. And I
right.
know that I know that I'm gonna be like in my 60s, and she's in high school, and her friends are like, Logan, your grandpa's here, and I'm gonna have white hair. I'll still be rocking, a Harley, and maybe,
Yeah, but dude, you're in great shape. You work out every
yeah,
day. Like,
yeah.
we're not
But
going to age like our parents did. That's not
right,
happening.
right. But I in my 30s, or I mean, people have had kids obviously in their 20s. Oh man, I would have been horrible. I would have been horrible. I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the tools. I would have definitely been reactive. I wouldn't have been present. I would have been, like, most most of the fathers in
Well,
this world,
it would have
absent,
been a
absent.
continuation of a cycle,
Yes, yes, yes. And I
right?
think by waiting and having a child now, I think I had her when I was in my, I think 47. Definitely, have a higher chance of me breaking the generational transmission process. It stops
Yeah.
here, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, you're giving me hope because I'm 45 and I've
Oh, you're young.
never been married, don't have
Yeah.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like what I'm doing is going to put me in the presence of the type
Sure.
the type of person that can meet me where I am
Mm.
now. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like you said, you choose each and every day to be with that person and to make that work.
You want kids?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
I've always wanted kids.
oh yeah,
It's just I've never been the person that I needed to be
yeah,
in order to have them.
yeah,
And it's taken me to get to this point to really take ownership of that and accept that
yeah,
about myself. So, what does vulnerability look like and mean to you? There's a lot of definitions popping around and it makes people
yeah.
feel a certain way, but how would you present that?
I would say showing your solid self. We all have a pseudo side and a solid side, and I pulled from my pseudo. Pseudo's um, the one that's seeks validation and approval, that lives outside in. So my 20s and 30s, most of my 30s was very pseudo. And when you're in your pseudo self, your potential goes down, no stars line up, and you're just swimming in your own shit. Um,
Happening to me.
that kind of thing. Yeah, it could be
Yeah,
victim mode. It could be it just I think you're kind of existing, not living, right? Your solid self, I think, is your authentic self. And that's usually the quiet whisper that we don't listen to until we have to, right? Until something real, until, we lose our kids or go through a divorce or something happens to us. Um, but I think in our solid self is authenticity, it's vulnerability. It's really living in a way where we are showing ourselves, showing our true selves. Now, it doesn't mean vomiting. It doesn't mean, because there's a responsibility in being
right.
vulnerable, right? We're not just vomiting constantly how we feel to everyone. That can be narcissistic. Um, I think it's showing who we are and showing up in a way that's honest, as much as we can. Yeah.
Why is it that we don't listen to that internal voice, that little thing that's popping up inside telling us what to do?
So I think we do listen when we're young, because I remember at 10 years old, the solid self was loud, and windbreaker, fat laces, 80 spinning on my head, losing myself in flow states. Man, I was so happy. I was a part of a little breakdance crew, and they were older, so I felt very protected and safe in the world.
I
Many
love
people,
this.
dude, for many people, the 80s was a nightmare. I get it, but for me,
I loved
uh,
it. Parachute pants
yeah,
and yeah,
parachute
Back to
pants
the
and
Future,
just,
give it to me.
dude, it was great. And
Yeah.
so, um, I remember at that time my solid self was very loud, and then I grew up and realized that, I was the runt, I couldn't get girls, I had crooked teeth, that kind of stuff. You have to get a job, you pay taxes. So as you grow up, you start then pulling from your pseudo instead of your solid to fit in, to be liked, to all the stuff. And then by the time you're in your 20s and 30s, you're really disconnected. And this is why that voice that was so loud is now a whisper, because you have not practiced listening to it, right? And then we go through a rebirth, and then something like a divorce or something, career change, something happens, um, and then we're like, fuck it, it's I'm time is running out, life is short, I'm going to start listening to my solid self. And when you do that, you also get pushback. People aren't used to
Yeah.
this voice. So you lose some friends, all of that. But I think then your potential goes up. And then I think when you are in your solid self, the biggest dent, before you go on this planet, because your uniqueness lives in your solid self, not your pseudo, right? Pseudo is just bland, vanilla.
What that brings up for me is very much the same way because you're in that place of curiosity when you're young, before
Yeah.
life really starts happening to you.
Yeah.
And then you're in this joyful state. It's just natural joy. You're happy
Yeah.
you don't know anything different. You're just
Yeah.
happy to be playing in the ditch with your cars, with your Matchbox cars, right?
Right.
Just
Right.
hanging out, doing whatever. And then life kind of happens. People start telling you who they think you are to them. And then you make this conscious choice to believe that,
Yeah.
and you get this overarching theme of I'm not enough or I'm
Mhm.
too much, so I have to play small, I have to be small, I can't be myself, I can't show up authentically because it apparently causes other people pain if I show up authentically.
Yeah.
That's a hard
Yeah.
place to be, man.
It's interesting. It's sad,
Yeah.
but there is a happy ending in that Carl Jung talks about the afternoon of life, and I think I'm definitely entering it, or I'm in it now. There is something organic and natural as you get older, where you just get so tired of walking with a mask that it kind of it's loose. It kind of falls off on its own.
Right.
Unless you're so caught up, or you're so, I mean, I don't know. I feel for, like, movie stars or people who are have so much money that they've never been said no to. I think if you live a life like that, it's harder to be, it's like you're almost in created your own prison in a way.
How has social media impacted your life?
Man, it's given me one. It's given me a life, just because it's given me a megaphone, to practice being in my solid self, and then so it's given me, book deals and a community and a practice and opportunities to be of service. Um, it's given me all that. So yeah, it's given me a life. I didn't have a life before social media, which is kind of sad. I don't mean it that way. But it as a tool, social
Yeah.
media has given me a voice. It's given me um, something to stand on. You
And
know.
what did that shift look like going from blogging into producing social media content? And do you oversee your social media yourself, or do you have somebody that does
Yeah,
that
I
for you?
do I do everything myself, and, I got lucky because I started on Tumblr, and I think on Tumblr, I didn't think anyone would read it, but I just created a blog called The Angry Therapist. I thought it was funny that a therapist was angry. I started documenting, and, I think I got, like, 60,000 followers or something, and then so when social media was invented, I think it was Facebook first and then Instagram, I was able to take, that audience and start kind of pouring them into social. So I started off, I did start off with 0, but I already had some traction from a blog. So that was, and then I also had the, the, by the way, I apologize for the noise in the background. Oh shit, now it's bad.
You're
Um,
good.
my gardeners are here. This is why I said 45 minutes. I knew it was going to be
Right? No,
15.
I hear you just
Yeah.
fine, man. You're good.
But, yeah, they got blowers out. It looks like Ghostbusters outside my. out my window. Hey, all these 80s references and people are listening like, what the fuck are these guys talking about?
If you watch my social media, I use all 80s music.
Oh,
I've
okay,
got
yeah,
an
yeah,
84 Camaro
yeah.
in the garage. Like this is what we do. It's cool.
Our solids tapping into our connecting to the part of us
Yes.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So Tumblr, around 60,000 readers, and then a percentage of them flowing into Facebook and then Instagram. So I had a little bit of a runway, which was nice.
What do you want your legacy to be from all of this?
Oh
Your
man.
85-year-old self looking back on all of this, what do you hope to accomplish in that time?
You know what I love the most actually isn't social media, is podcasting, is what you're doing right
Yeah.
now. I love the idea of having these audio time capsules and leaving that behind. And I'm like, I think 700 or 800 episodes in
Yeah,
because
you've honed your craft. You're good at it.
well, they're little micro. The
Yeah.
podcast is literally 10 minutes, but it's 3 times a week. And I want to leave here, and I want people to think, whether you like me or not, he lived an honest life. That, like, to me, that's the highest compliment, is that I lived an honest life. And honest includes messy, it includes contradictions, it includes being wrong, all over the place. But you know what, man? He was honest with himself. Oh, look at his band-aid. How do you know your dad's job without I have a My Little Pony band-aid, I just realized, on my forearm. I just wanna live an honest life.
Yeah.
I think that's what can anyone say about that, you know?
I said, and it includes showing your perineum on social media.
Yes, yes. Sometimes My Little Pony Band-Aids,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
whatever.
being authentic to who
Yeah,
you really are
yeah,
and what you resonate with. And
yeah, and it
you know,
changes, but always be honest.
yeah, there's gonna be people that agree with you, disagree with you, and
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that's
yeah.
life, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate your authenticity and everything that you bring to us through your podcast, through your books, and I'm glad that you share your experiences with all of us so that we
Oh,
can
thank
learn
you.
and grow from that.
Thank you for having me
Um,
on your show. I really appreciate it.
for sure. I want to make sure that we touch on this. You've got a retreat coming up, and then you also have Lumia coaching. So can you explain those two things to us?
Yeah, Lumia Coaching is something I created, co-founded many years ago after being frustrated with the clinical world. And you could check that out on Lumia, just social media, Lumia Coaching. And I've been running these retreats that I've been falling in love with, just super quick weekend retreats in Idlewild, and I'm doing my first trauma edition. I call them miserable fucks retreats
I
with
love
our
it.
mutual friend MC.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a weekend in the wild with ice plunges and guided walks and processing and a chef and breath work, and it's a reset, a quick reset.
I love that. It
Yeah.
sounds like a freaking amazing time. So if you guys have the time and the opportunity, it is October 6th through the 8th,
Yeah,
I
and the
think.
next one's October 6th through the 8th, and hey, maybe you can join us one time.
I would love to. It'd be
Yeah,
amazing
awesome.
for sure. Well, John, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Be well.